Hello. What's going on, Luke? Hey, what is going on, everybody? Hello, welcome to Dungeoneers Pack Live. I am Josh. Thank you guys for tuning in. Dungeoneers Pack Live is a weekly live stream where I discuss topics for D&D 5th edition to provide insights and solutions for problems that you have in your game. This week, we're going to be talking about Ranger. We're going to be talking about the Ranger class. We're going to be talking about some of the flavor, and also I'll be answering any questions on you guys have in the chat in regards to building a Ranger mechanically, and also we're going to be sort of highlighting some of the discussion that's happened in regards to the Ranger over 5th edition's lifespan. There's a lot of stuff. What's going on, Dreamweaver? What's going on, Luke? So I'm gonna kind of kick this off. You guys have any questions or anything, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I will pull them up on the screen for you guys. So what exactly is the Ranger? And then I'm gonna go ahead and bring up Roll20 so we can see some of our mechanics. We can kind of dig into it as we go through what I think the Ranger is. So for me, the fantasy the Ranger is trying to tell is to be a survivalist warrior. It is definitely a martial class that has a fighting style, but it also has a magical bent in 5th edition. So plainly, it is in 5th edition, the Ranger is a magical survivalist warrior. It really wants you to play into the survivalist trope. You can tell this by the weapons it uses. The weapons are more about hunting than it is straight combat compared to a fighter. I think there is some visual overlap when you look at the fighter, because the fighter is also a really good archer, and normally archery is tied to Rangers, but in the way that they use archery, it's more to hunt things than it is to actually target enemies, and it just so happens they use that skill to fight monsters, while a fighter is just a trained archer in war combat. The general idea of that's where these two diverge. The Ranger has a considerable overlap in its relationship with nature in comparison to the Druid. They both are considered the quote-unquote nature classes. The nature-based classes, they are powered by their magic. It is nature-based, right? But the Druid, in comparison, is attempting to be in tune with nature. They want to be in harmony with the realm around them. The Ranger, on the other hand, again, is a martial warrior, but they've learned to exist, survive, but also conquer nature. There's a big distinction when it comes to the relationship with nature in comparison to the Druid. The Rangers tend to have a foot in civilization and society, but also a foot in the natural world. They will use tools and weapons and other things to overcome the dangers of the natural world, while the Druid is looking to find balance and harmony with the world around them, and will get rid of societal comforts. That's why Druids, you see them not be allowed to use metal for some reason. It's just something they had to hold over from previous editions of 5th edition, or previous editions of D&D. And in comparison to Ranger, no, they can wear metal armor, any sort of, they use metal weapons, anything. So what this amounts to when you're looking at your Ranger and looking at building a Ranger in a role-playing, the Ranger, they see nature as a resource for themselves. They will use it to overcome things, and it's simple as something like, for example, they hunt wildlife to survive and for food, right? They will use branches and trees to make arrows and stuff like that. Let's see. Let me bring up some comments. Okay, let's see. I would have loved to see the arcane archer subclass on a Ranger, maybe tie in Ranger spells like flame or lightning arrow. Yeah, I think when you're looking at the thematics of arcane archer versus Ranger, it makes sense, right? The Ranger's supposed to be the guy that uses bows and arrows mainly, and that you would think the arcane archer fits within the Ranger, but it fits better in the fighter. I'll be on to say that it fits better in the fighter because the fighter is purely a warrior. and will use any sort of weapons and is trained in arts of war. And I believe the lore behind arcane archery is that you're wielding magic and infusing that into your weapons, and specifically your bow. Trained for war. Rangers, on the other hand, they're trained to survive the world. And while naturally it would make sense, hey, bow and arrow, I should put magic in my bow and arrow, the function and the lore behind arcane archer doesn't necessarily tie into what the fantasy the Rangers wants players to go towards. So there's a difference. What's going on, Phil? It doesn't mean that they shouldn't have some sort of elemental based class or subclass. I would love to see like a druidic bent elemental class for a ranger that hunts elementals. That'd be sick. Is the ranger a hunter or an explorer? It could be both. Survivalist is I think is the better term for it. They go look into unknown worlds, uncharted areas, but they're looking to overcome it, to survive it, to figure out its resources, to figure out what's in the area, to pretty much scout. This is all within the thematics of what a ranger wants us to be, at least in 5th edition, especially if you look at a lot of the subclasses. Like, I'll go down. We'll look at the subclasses a little bit to kind of explain why my head leans this way, right? Okay, Drake Warden, you're pretty much dragon pet. That helps you pretty much go into the bounds and realms of dragons and understand and survive around dragons. Swarmkeeper is pretty much, it's not that they're vanilla, it's just they're pretty, you can flavor your swarm in any way, but normally it's using wildlife with you, small bugs or small packs of animals, or even Fae to kind of survive the world around you. Fae, you're surviving the Fae wild. Your survival, and you have a big understanding of the Fae wild. Monster Slayer, again, you're fighting monsters. You're learning to adapt and go into the world where there's things that are scarier than you, and you've learned to overcome them. Horizon Walker, you're traveling planes. You're a multiversal survivalist. It's Horizon Walker is probably one of the coolest thematic ideas when you really look at what the Ranger thematically wants people to do. And it's like, yeah, you're a planeswalker and you're hopping from plane to plane, but you've learned to survive that sort of travel between worlds. And Gloomstalker, well, you survive the dark, whether that's the Underdark or the dark alleys in the world or the dark forest. You're that guy. You're kind of Batman-ish. Hunter and Beastmaster. Hunter's your standard ranger, and Beastmaster again is kind of similar to Swarmkeeper, where you're allying with the natural world to overcome it and to survive it. Thousands of Lantern, Archons, or Stormkeeper. Ooh, that'd be nasty. Okay, we got a question from Luke. Let me pull you up. Question I had before Tasha's: why was the Ranger so hated compared to others, and what did Tasha add so that there's pros and cons of updates? Not okay. I was gonna get to this a little later, but let's jump into this now because I think this was like one of the big things when we're gonna discuss Ranger. Why was the Player's Handbook Ranger considered bad, right? Why was it bad? So I'm going to have to admit, back in the day, I was one of those people that's like, oh, Ranger's bad, right? But I never had my opinion on it really out there in regards to that. And I had the luxury of time and to really see it and really get into 5th edition prior to starting the channel. And really dig into the system and kind of get a better understanding of it. And even more so getting into more development and homebrew side of stuff for player options too. It's really opened my eyes a lot more to how some of the cogs work for the system. The 5th edition Player's Handbook Ranger was never bad. Mechanically. It did what it was designed to do. You were the survivalist champion. You are the main guy that would able to explore and dominate the exploration pillar of the game. That was the Ranger's job. That's what they super excelled at. Their damage was fine. They didn't really do anything damage. But why did people think the Player's Handbook Ranger was bad? Two points, or two reasons. The skill system in 5th edition is underdeveloped. It is a very pass or fail system. And the exploration pillar of the game is pretty much non-existent. There really isn't really meaty set of rules that allow a player to interact more than with the skill system and just say pass or fail. It's very up to the DM to develop that rule, that system in that narration, compared to the social pillar, the roleplay pillar, and the combat pillar. Combat pillar in 5th edition is highly developed. Most stuff that people talk about is online and everywhere is how much damage you can do, what kind of crazy stuff in combat you're going to be able to do, and what sort of combat mechanics stuff break the game. We see that because majority of the game is developed in that way. Social pillar, even though there isn't really too many tools for it, it's legitimately people talking so they feel engaged. There's that social aspect of the game where you're playing a character and you're talking and conversing with each other and the DM as the various NPCs and monsters. There's not too many mechanics you really need for that because you already feel engaged. That it is a more of a psychological thing. You don't need too many mechanics to facilitate that. That's the social aspect of the game, but also that's how the social pillar works. Exploration, on the other hand, does need a set of mechanics to really reinforce this stuff. It really needs more than just pass or fail. So with that in mind, the Ranger feels bad. I had a bad player experience, and so some people aren't able to articulate that. They just feel my Ranger isn't doing anything, even though the Ranger just says I win. They have the I win button, and that made people feel that the Ranger was bad. It's interacting with a part of the game that was not as developed as it could be, and it still needs to be developed. And for me, even then, I don't really know how much they can really develop the exploration pillar besides adding more mechanics that might gum up the game. That would make the Player's Handbook Ranger feel good, because I think there should be certain levels of success, different ways that and the mechanics have to be developed in a way that they create branches. So like you may solve one thing, but you need to start moving the levers and figure out different ways to succeed on certain things, or they create different paths to solutions to survive the exploration pillar. You're trying to survive, really, and there really isn't too much of that. I know they added in Tasha's, I believe it was trying to remember off the top of my head, it was the supernatural, not supernatural, but ultra natural world disaster sort of mechanics where you're trying to survive that stuff. But in reality, in the exploration pillar, there's a lot of data collection. There's a lot of scouting, trap busting, trap finding, trying to find secret rooms, secret walls, etc. But it's literally pass, fail. At least if you just look at the game raw, it's roll dice. Did you beat the DC? Cool, you find the thing. And if your class is entirely based off of just that, you're gonna feel like you're not doing anything because there's no interaction with it. You're just like, yep, I pass, I beat it. So that's why people felt Player's Handbook Ranger was just bad. It wasn't. It was just too good at what it did. It just trivialized challenges. To the point where people, like, if you look at it now, like, it blatantly just ignores exploration pillar. I'm trying to, I think the biggest example is I'm going to just cast Pass Without Trace. We're going to stealth around and I'm going to look for danger. Okay, roll a perception or survival check. Cool. Roll a stealth check. Cool. Okay, you guys are avoid any trouble along the way. You guys are traveling, and bam, that's it. Right. That's it. So that does give the player experience. The players feel that this sucks. Mechanically, no. Mechanically, the Player's Handbook's fine. Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Senior Other comments. Yeah, they don't really integrate traps and puzzles and overland survival encounters in a cohesive format. Yeah, there really isn't, and that's a detriment because the ranger should be that guy. That's the thing it's supposed to do. And I think, and then Dreamweaver, I think the player's handbook version seemed weak because a lot of ranger features were situational and rarely used in the game. Yep. And the thing is, I think they expected the ranger to be doing more of that stuff, but they didn't realize, I think in part, two parts of the reason why players, I think, are changing the way they played D&D. Actually, three things. Everyday life. People are not going to be playing the game like in 12-hour like sessions, like long day games, right? They're playing in really, really small sessions, sometimes from an hour to 3 hour small game sessions, right? Either week to week, month to month, whatever. So they're just trying to do a lot in a small session. So it's very easy to just be like, okay, pass, fail, cool. You guys get to the next point with no issue when you're in terms of travel and exploration. So part of the thing that Ranger wants to do kind of gets cut out, right? Second, streaming. The influence of Critical Role and other streaming games does have a skew in a view of what people think D&D is going to play. So when you go approach it, if you're not already indoctrinated and part of the space and already been playing D&D, most players in 5th edition are gonna they're gonna jump in from these other point, and a lot of travel time gets cut out of like these live stream shows because that's not the interesting part of stuff. The interesting part is who's the next big bad, uncovering secrets, going into dungeons, but overland travel and stuff like that isn't really integrated. And I think the last thing is that, again, the game, it has a really big focus on the combat pillar. So you're interacting more with the combat aspect of the game. And that brings me back now to my point with why Tasha's did right by the Ranger. It adjusted the Ranger to interact with the parts of the game that players are really leaning into now for 5th edition. There is a certain play style within 5th edition that's developed in a large part to all these factors. And that is, it's going to be a little bit more combat focused game, so that's why you see a lot of I can pull up Tasha's for you guys. Let me pull up Tasha's in a second. Let's pull it up off here. Yeah, there you can see that there is a big difference in the playstyle of what the Ranger wants you to do in comparison to the player's handbook Ranger. They still play within the same space. It's just now the player's handbook, or excuse me, the Tasha's Ranger and all the changes there really have you interact with the most developed system in the game. So you feel like you're doing stuff. You feel like you're doing stuff in combat. And the thing is, a Ranger never had an issue doing stuff in combat. They're pretty strong already. They're pretty solid. They did what they were needed to do. I remember playing in my Storm King's Thunder campaign, and our highest damage output person was a Ranger. And we had a Barbarian on the team, and we had a bunch of spellcasters. But in terms of just like raw, not including spells, just raw martial damage, our Ranger was it. And they were just playing the basic Hunter Ranger from the player's handbook. So let's look up at the Ranger. Optional class features. So, right. So optional class features, units passed. So you can take Depth Explorer instead of Natural Explorer. So let's pull up. We're gonna go compare and contrast really quick on what this does. Natural Explorer, a difficult terrain doesn't slow your group travel. Your group can't become lost except by magical means. Even when you're engaged in another activity while traveling, you remain alert to danger. You're traveling alone. You can move stealthily at a normal pace. Some of this stuff's not going to come up in your game. Just depends how you play. Depth Explorer in comparison, you get to choose another proficiency in a skill, and then you get expertise on it. Any skill. So you can just change your rapidly increase. It changes your build to do whatever you needed to do. And then you get another language choice. So meaning in social challenges, your character is going to be a little bit more front and center compared to others. On top of just this, you can just build your character in a way and lean it in a way to go into a little bit more other roleplay space and interactivity, and then increase your movement speed, which is going to be good in combat, walking in, and then a swimming speed, climbing speed, really good. Heck yeah, Phil. Yeah, Phil and I are going to be diving into a Ranger, I believe, in a couple weeks again. And then Tireless, yeah, and you see, again, these are more tangible stuff that you're going to kind of see and interact with on a regular basis within the system of how the game is being played now. Increased movement speed and also climbing and swimming speed. And then at level 10, you get temp HP that you can give yourself, which is pretty much like a second wind for the Ranger. All right. And then you get favorite foe, a damage based thing, which is supposed to be like the solution for the Hunter's Mark and bonus action glut issue. Here's that, right? More spells, which is never a bad thing. And additional fighting style options. Primal awareness. I think this is where we start changing. You learn additional spells. See, even more spells. Martial versatility. Now this goes on. You're focusing on aspects of the game that are already developed, and you know you're going to be using in comparison to stuff like Natural Explorer and a couple of the other things that may not come up, especially if you're not playing a game that's going to gear towards travel and survival. And most people might not play in that way because those parts of the game are not developed. It doesn't mean that the other Ranger's bad. It just means that with a underdeveloped system, you're going to trivialize that system because you're just too good at it. It's like you're too good at the thing you're meant to do, and it has that bad player experience. It doesn't mean that the class was bad. So, but yeah, and then there's a couple other things I wanted to jump into because there were some questions from the Discord. They want to know, why does the Ranger have magic? Why does it cast spells? And you would think a class that's based off survival, a martial survivalist, would lean more into a physical world and kind of start to MacGyver stuff. In large part, it was a solution to a problem that isn't existing. I get the rub folks are going to have with the Ranger not being casting magic, and when they want it to be this very down and gritty survivalist that relies on the natural world, develop stuff from the world, traps, bows and arrows, everything, right? The Druid and the Ranger, I said earlier, has a conceptual overlap. The Druid does fantastic feats in regards to nature to be in harmony with it, while the Ranger can do fantastic feats with nature to overcome it, to survive it, and to conquer it. The biggest example I can give you guys why they gave the Ranger magic is the spell Speak with Animals. Rangers and Druids both, in a lot of fiction and a lot of various depictions of them, have an ability to speak with animals and communicate with them in such a way. It would make no sense for wizards to develop two systems to do the same thing. And that's really what it comes down to. They're not going to develop a non-magical way for you to speak animals when the magical way with a developed system for multiple classes is sitting right there for them to say, okay, this is a fantastical element, speak with animals. They don't need to do double work. It's really just that simple. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a place for a non-magic ranger character, a scout, a survivalist. But that's why they attempted this scout rogue. And you could still play into that fantasy with the fighter. The fighter's in a, I think, weird conceptual space in regards to its subclasses that allow it to be broader and play into some of that trope. But it's really that simple. It is just, there's no reason to develop two systems if the fantastical elements are already being addressed for something that's very similar in one way. They can just carry it over and do it, with the other class. And it is a simple solution to a problem that in terms of the design of the game. But I would definitely love to see more non-magical stuff that can kind of do magical things at times. I think it's more so the feeling players want to feel like they're doing things that are different, even if they are similar. Okay, now the question with Luke. Okay, Luke, what you got? Okay, let me pull this up. Question: besides Druid, what other classes could you see multi-class into for a Ranger, if any? Fighter is good. If you really want to get more into like the combat aspect of things, mainly it's because of Action Surge and Second Wind are just really good. Rogue is another solid one if you really want to double down on specifically if you want to double down on expertise. And the little sneak attack damage is fine. It's an extra d6 if you don't go too far deep into it. But its expertise is just really, really good. If you get up to start getting cunning action, you're going to start messing with your bonus action economy, which I'll get to in a second, because we're going to look at some of the cons of the Ranger, and bonus action is one of them. Druid is fine if you want to go into the more nature aspect of the Ranger, but I don't see. Conceptually, it's good. Thematically, it's fine. Like it makes sense. I'm not sure I see mechanically off the top of my head any sort of big bonuses that you're really going to want to get out of both things, because they kind of want to fill different roles. The Druid is very much a controller, and the Ranger is definitely like a martial blaster, or just a martial blaster, skirmisher, or a frontliner, depending on how it's built. They kind of fill those three spots depending. Cleric is another solid one. People sleep on Cleric, but a level dip into Cleric for a lot of classes is really, really dumb in getting access to a lot of some of these features, because they can open up even more avenues of play, and also kind of align your Ranger with a god, which is cool narratively. But Cleric's not bad, and again, these are all wisdom and dex based classes you can lean into. Trying to think. Monk, unfortunately, even though they share the dex and wisdom, they're not a good fit for each other. They really, really aren't, unless you're going to dedicate like heavier builds for it. But a lot of it is just because the monk requires a lot of things, and if you're already going to play a class that wants to do unarmed striking and stuff, and then you have a class that wants to hit stuff with the weapons, you kind of have some weird things. I think Ranger at that point becomes a better support multi-class for the monk than the other way around. So again, I'm thinking of this in the mindset of your dominant Ranger and what multi-class options are going to support you. Support that. I still want to play the Ranger aspect. Monk is not good for that, but Monk the other way around, I think it's fine. It's because you line up dex wisdom con, and you suck at everything else, but you should be okay. But yeah, that's if you're going to be dominant monk. This Ranger does add some stuff, and you're probably going to go at least 2. If you're like me and only take like light level multi-class dips, 2 levels into Ranger's fine. If you really, really want to dig into 3 or 4, just to get a subclass in ASI, I think you're okay too. But again, I'm never a big fan of like super big dips and like getting into multiple subclasses and stuff for classes. And in large part, it's because I look at player experience and how your level career is going to be when you're playing. Unfortunately, my big gripe in general with how people discuss character builds and stuff, and on my channel I do a bunch of them, but they do not take into account level experience or in the player experience. It takes you a long time to get to some of these things, into these big level games where you're going to go like 16 or like 16-4 or like 11-11 split or something, like something ridiculous, like like a 10-10 split, and these multi-class builds to get all these functions. But most of your games are never going to go to 20. Official games don't go past 14. There's a very, very few exceptions that get you to 20, but most of the campaigns don't only get you past 14. So that's one of those things. Like I keep that in mind. That's why you're never really going to see too many crazy builds that say take 5 into this, 2 into this, and like another 7 into something else. You know, it just, to get to the combo, I want to do that as fast as possible, and some of these multi-class things don't always let you do that. If key and spell slots can work together, Monk Ranger would really be interesting. Yeah, it's really weird that key is kind of like off on its own thing and doesn't get reused on other stuff, because I've said this in Discord before, and I've said this in other Discords. Key would be pretty sweet as a psionic mechanic. White ribbon design is a false reward. WotC shouldn't really design ribbon features above 7th. Honestly, if they ever do a 6th edition after this, I would gut the level 20 requirement. I would gut. I would go up to level 10. Level up to level 10. Like there's no need to go to 20. The game's not played in a way that you're gonna get up there. Especially if they want to consider backwards compatibility and stuff like that. Like it's either you cut it and you cut the levels in half or by third or whatever, or you change the level progression in a way that you get there faster. That's really all you can do. Like, either let people get to that point faster and support those higher level adventures and actually give them support for it, or you just gut it and just have people interact with the parts of the game that they're already interacting with. All right, what about Barbarian? Barbarian's interesting because sometimes there is a conceptual overlap with Barbarian, Druid, and Ranger, because it's the wild aspect that the Barbarian can have, and you see that in a lot of other settings and other games and previous editions of D&D. But the very fact that you have to go strength, con, dex, and then if you were to multi-class into Ranger, you need to go wisdom. It's looking rough. It is looking very, very rough for you. It's not that you can't do it. It's just tough, and you might, depending on how your table's played, if it's a highly optimized table, you're going to feel stunted compared to other people that are going to be a little more streamlined and keep everything sad and not mad. I would love to see more like strength rangers and stuff. And getting access to Barbarian would be actually pretty sweet. Just as rough. Like, those are things I keep in mind too, because it's like, yes, I want to encourage you guys to do stuff like that. It's just player experience is like one of the big things for me. Like, and even in terms of how I approach design. Yeah, see, and then Luke brings up another point. You can't concentrate on spells while raging. Yeah, you're going to be leaning heavily into like I hit you stuff. If you're going to go Ranger or Druid, or Ranger or Barbarian. Not that you can't, it's just player experience is rough. And I was getting back to my point about that. Even when in terms of design, I know other designers, and I know Phil could probably attest to this. They really are want to go about balance of the game, right? To the point where WotC, let's be real, Wizards doesn't really focus on balance. I think their approach is player experience. If one, it sells books. That's just not beat around the bush of that. They're selling books, so player experience is going to be a little bit higher than actual game balance. But also keeping the player base happy. There's a lot more players than there are designers and DMs. So keeping the player base happy and giving them powerful options that are a little more broken or higher power compared to other ones here and there to keep player experience up. It's not that, like, I like to keep things balanced, but will lean towards player experience if it just allows them to do the cool fantasy thing and not break the game too much. That's how, like, I've been approaching my design. But then I'll run it through guys like Phil, Indestructible Boy, and other designers. I'll just toss stuff at them, and then they can tell me if I'm going too far. You know, like, and I get a good sense of, like, when I'm, like, pushing stuff too much. But at the same time, like, I don't mind if something I might design may create a fun player experience, but it might feel broken or might feel a little too powerful. Balance, I think, is one of those things where when you're looking at stuff, I don't feel that you should, unless you're playing raw. That's what I'm saying. If you play raw, then that's other thing. But balance is one of those things that, and it varies big time from table to table. Yeah, definitely agree. Providing more powerful in the first 3 levels incentivizes players to try again when a campaign fails. Yeah, like, yeah, that's this thing. Okay, let's see. So things to look out for. There's 2 more things I really wanted to get into. One is what's a con of the Ranger and things you need to look out for when you're building them and trying to play them. Bonus action glut. The Ranger, unfortunately, I know some people have said other things about this and say that they don't have a lot to do with their bonus action. The Ranger, unfortunately, has too much to do with their bonus action. People just don't see it that way because they just think Hunter's Mark and go, and that's it. But the problem with a lot of Ranger stuff is they have too many uses of your bonus action, to the point where one thematically viable way that people want to play the Ranger is a struggle to play with some of the subclasses, and that is the 2-weapon fighting Ranger. The image of, like, you see with Dritz, he has 2 swords and he's swinging away. Can't really do that with at least in a streamlined way, at least with the Player's Handbook Ranger. There's been some fixes that they've done this, but let me show you some examples of what I mean. So Hunter's Mark is a bonus action ability, and then you have other bonus action features or spells already with the Ranger. So you have those competing with each other, and you need to kind of figure out what level of concentration and how you're going to want to use your bonus action. If you want to be a 2-weapon fighting Ranger, well, Hunter's Mark kind of eats up your bonus action at the first turn. You don't get to do the cool thing of hitting with things with 2 swords immediately from the get-go, which is frustrating. And it's frustrating. And that's on top of any other bonus action spells you get as a Ranger. And then there's the subclasses. Some of these subclasses, Beastmaster Ranger, requires you to use your bonus action to command your pet now with the tossers rules. Let's see. I'm going to keep pulling these up because I think I have. Yeah. A lot of these have bonus action features that use your bonus action to do something cool. Playing our warrior. As a bonus action, choose a creature you see within 30 feet of you. The next time you hit with that creature on this turn with a weapon attack, all damage dealt by that attack becomes force damage, and you deal an extra D8. Cool. So by turn 2, you can finally go Hunter's Mark and then Horizon Walker. You wait 2 turns to use your cool subclass feature. And this eliminates 2-weapon fighting altogether. So, okay, cool. You can't play a cool concept. You pretty much eliminate a cool concept, and you have to wait 2 turns if you're using Hunter's Mark for this stuff. So again, another clash. Gloomstalker, I think Gloomstalker gets away with it because they just straight up give you a free attack. Yeah, they just straight up give you a free attack. So Gloomstalker is a little safer. But then, let's see. We're going to keep going. With Drake Warden, you can't do it. You got to wait 2 turns before, if you're going to go Hunter's Mark and Drake Warden, use your pet to go chomp stuff. Yeah. Fey Wander, let's go. Let's see. So you get additional spells. And then Fey Wander. People sleep on Fey Wander. I slept on this one. This is probably like one of my favorite Ranger subclasses that I think about it. Even though it's only a D4, this increases. But again, just like the Gloomstalker, there's no bonus action glut. You kind of get to do your cool thing on top of it on the first turn. Okay, I don't have Drake Warden on here, but Drake Warden, just like Beastmaster, use your bonus action, command your pet. And if you're going to go Hunter's Mark, the next turn you get to command your pet and do something. Like you wait a turn, and sometimes that turn matters to do your cool thing that your class wants to do, the cool concept you want you to play as your character. 1 to 2 turns to set up like a bunch of damage combos isn't as efficient as you could be, and this is a little optimization look at it. But at the same time, thematically, and if you're looking at your player experience or wanting to play things, I'm the type of person that on the turn 1, I want to do my cool concept character combo thing. Why? Like, I don't want to spend 2 turns to do that, 3 turns to set this up. Right? I want to do it. I want my character to do its cool thing, like when we start combat. Especially, you got to think about it this way too. 2 turns might not seem like a lot, but depending how many people you have in your party, 2 turns can take a while. Especially if other players can do all their cool stuff at turn 1. Let's see. Yeah, I think Hunter is another safe one. They kind of just, you pick your option and then go to town. So they don't have too much of the issue with the bonus action glut. So yeah, so you're safe here. Let's see, Swarmkeeper. I don't know Swarmkeeper. Attack on one side, use your turns. Okay, yeah. So Swarmkeeper is good too. Doesn't use your bonus action to do stuff. But mainly, you're pretty much, you have a couple options that do use your bonus action, so you don't get to do your cool ranger thing you want to do. And then mainly one of the conceptual things with the rangers that thematically you want to, some rangers want to be two weapon fighting and Hunter's Mark, and your spell casting that use bonus actions, or some of your subclass features don't let you play into that concept. So that's one of like there's a clunkiness with the ranger in regards to that. Yeah, see, Writhing Tide. They uses your bonus action. So yeah, there's a bit of clunkiness, and it can be frustrating because you want to, and that's why I think people do push the ranger off to just being the bow and arrow guy, the bow and arrow person, and then because a couple reasons, optimally range is generally considered better, and 2-weapon fighting is generally crappy in the game. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't play well at all. So it's like that's why you see people just play more of the ranger as the range person. But yeah, so, and it's one of those things, order of operations, kind of like when you're going into the ranger, figure out what kind of cops you're doing. If you want to do a certain concept and play a certain way, you're more than free to do it, but just be wary of your bonus action use. If you want to be like Dritz and be a dual wielding ranger but have a pet, you're going to struggle. You're not really going to be using your 2 weapons simply because you need your bonus action to command your pet. So it's like things like that. Stuff like that's eliminated. And the same thing. You want to be the ranger, and then the old dogma of Hunter's Mark is a go-to for the ranger. Well, you need your bonus action to use that, and you can't have your pet. You can't use your cool subclass ability on some of these subclasses that use your bonus action on your first turn because you need to do Hunter's Mark. Also, rangers being a known caster feels bad. I don't know. I don't know. In my head, I don't get too much wrapped up into whether they're a prepared caster, known caster. And I think that's just more play experience at my table, influencing more than me really looking at the game and how that actually affects things. You're just casting, for me, it's like you're just casting magic to express certain fantastical elements that the class is known for. And for me, the way I consider the prepared thing, or the known caster, is that they know a bunch of these small tricks and things that present itself as magic, that these tools that they have, and that's how it expresses through magic. That's how I rationalize it, but I get why people feel that is not cool. Like, it doesn't work with them. But again, like I will say, that is definitely my play group's play style bias, like firmly forming that opinion, and not something on a mechanical level. It's just like, for us, it's like it's just magic. Okay, so the big thing. I think there's been a lot of discussion on Hunter's Mark. Let me see if I can. Let me pull it up for you guys. I want to pull up Hunter's Mark, because there's a lot of discussion in regards to Hunter's Mark on whether you should take it, if you're bad for taking it, etc. And I want to discuss that and kind of point out some of the flaws and some of the arguments against it, but also explain and discuss my opinion on why you shouldn't take it. I think you're in a good spot to now, a lot better to not take it. Dreamweaver. An easy fix for 2-weapon fighting is remove the bonus action attack and use the offhand as part of the same action. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think there's an easy fix for 2-weapon fighting, at least with 5th edition's action economy right now. I really don't think there is. Because part of the thing is it's a psychological thing when a player experience thing when it comes to this, and it's not necessarily a mechanical solution. I'll bring up. So, and what I mean by this is, if I'm attacking with the weapon and I'm attacking with 2 weapons, right? As a player in my play experience, saying that I use 2 weapons to attack and just adding that offhand damage to my main attack doesn't translate in my brain that that's me using my other weapon to attack. And it makes sense why they made it a bonus action to be like, okay, you attack with your main hand, and as a bonus action you can follow up and attack with an offhand. Makes sense narratively, makes sense in the player experience that I make one attack and then my other hand makes another attack. Cool. Mechanically, it's clunky as hell. It doesn't feel good. So it's like you have those two parts conflicting, and I think if they stick with the action, bonus action, movement economy of 5th edition, you're not going to have an easy fix for that unless they sell us on a new narrative to address it. I've never played Pathfinder 2, but I'm aware of their action economy being very, very different and being a little bit more freeing in terms of how attacks and movement and stuff works. And I would like to see something like that for the next edition of D&D. Where, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys play Pathfinder 2, let me know, is that they pretty much have action points to spend, or like actions to spend, but pretty much you do whatever you want. So if you want to attack 3 times, you can do that, but obviously I think the way it works is every attack after the first, there's negatives to it. You miss more. So, and then a movement counts as one action and stuff like that. So you I think that's how you're going to be able to fix another way to fix 2-weapon fighting. And I would actually fix some of the subclass features too, because you don't have to constantly keep them as bonus action. You can say you could spend an action point. You can spend an action to do this feature. So those are things. It's just like make it easier for players to do stuff, not get them set and stuck with this or anything, because you're not always going to use your movement. So So what if you were allowed to do another action in place of your movement? So that's things I would hope they look at. Anyway, Hunter's Mark. So, should you or shouldn't you use Hunter's Mark? I don't think you're a bad player if you like Hunter's Mark. You want to use it. It plays into the fantasy. It just can be clunky, and I don't think it's efficient for your concept or your play style to use Hunter's Mark if you have a class that is highly dependent on your bonus action, or you have a subclass that is dependent on your bonus action. I suggest you play Favorite Foe or use Favorite Foe instead, because it allows you to do the cool thing you want to do. You want to be 2-weapon fighting ranger, while Hunter's Mark, I think, because it just triggers off all your attacks. Cool, but you're gonna wait a turn to be the guy I hit with 2 weapons. Somebody can do the math, if the math matters more for you for that, continue using it, it's fine. It's just, for me, conceptually, I want to be able to do my cool thing from the get-go. Favorite Foe is fine. I want to be a Beastmaster Ranger or Drakewater Ranger, use my pet to attack on the first turn. I'm going to use Favorite Foe. I want to do that cool thing immediately. I want to be able to use my dragon pet to come in and burn people. Favorite Foe is there. You get to play your concept a lot faster. You get to do your cool combo a lot faster. And you still get to play in that same conceptual space that Hunter's Mark is. Favorite Foe, pretty much you're marking a target and you're going to town on them. Hunter's Mark is the same thing. They both use their concentration. I think Hunter's Mark has a little more play because of this right here. You have advantage on perception and wisdom survival checks you make to find them. It lasts up to an hour. Let you play Hunter Man after combat if you still have Hunter's Mark up. Cool. And still perfectly fine if you still want to do that. I think there's other spells and features you can use and skills that you can use that can kind of achieve the same thing. No shame or hate in the game if you're wanting Hunter's Mark. At the same time, do not be beholden to the dogma that is Hunter's Mark. There's other spells. I think it's Zephyr Strike, right? That use that are at the same level. I want to say Zephyr Strike. Hold on. I could be wrong. There's another ranger spell at the first level. Yeah. Zephyr Strike. That you can use, that's perfectly cool and fine with your feature. What you want to do with your class or your abilities as a ranger, as a character. And it's fine to do that. It increases additional damage, just like Hunter's Mark. But you get to move like the wind. So, there's and it's okay to choose that instead of Hunter's Mark. Play a different sort of concept. You don't really want to be a hunter man, but you kind of want to be like this swift moving, agile ranger that chops stuff up. Go for it. Don't be beholden to Hunter's Mark just because the old dogma that people say, hey, it's good. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. But you have other options there that are going to be more efficient for you, that still let you play into that fantasy, that still let you play into the I mark you for death sort of idea. You get Favorite Foe there, which will let you do that same thing. And then especially if you're playing 2-weapon fighter rangers or a subclass that uses a bonus action heavily for a lot of their features, you get to do all that at level 1 and still feel good, feel powerful. Might not always be optimal, but that's okay. For me, that's okay. There is one opinion that keeps coming up, though, that dissuades people from using Hunter's Mark that I think is the wrong way to look at why you shouldn't, and I want to kind of address it. And it's one thing to say you should not take Hunter's Mark because a higher level spell you have is more efficient and better. So I think it's an unfair comparison because by the nature of how spells and stuff work, even if they both use your concentration, a higher level spell should be more effective and more efficient and more powerful than a first level spell. At this, and especially if they don't do the same thing. So the example you're going to see pop up online a lot is use Conjure Animals instead of Hunter's Mark. Cool, but that should not dissuade you from using Hunter's Mark or picking Hunter's Mark as a spell if you want Hunter's Mark. You don't get Conjure Animals access to third level spells as a ranger till way later, so most of your leveling and playing experience is going to be within the first 8, right? The first few, or first a large portion of the lower to mid tier play. So you're never going to have that unless you're playing in a one shot, right? And that's a whole different thing. But they also are not a fair comparison, because spells like Conjure Animals expand your action economy and are not a one-for-one. They're not one-for-one in what they're both attempting to do, right? Hunter's Mark wants to give you a damage boost and give you play into a little bit of a tracker fantasy. Conjure Animals expands your action economy, which will always trump a slight damage boost. It's not a fair comparison. They're not the same thing. A higher level spell will always do better than a lower level spell. So that should not dissuade you from taking Hunter's Mark if you're trying to figure out what to do and whether you should take it or not. I say look at, if you're really trying to be concerned of like how Hunter's Mark is, I think the big thing you really should look at when should sway you or dissuade you is just really look at how you want to use your bonus action. It's really that simple. Numbers are cool, numbers are fine, but I lean heavily on, can I do my cool thing? Is it going to allow me to do my character, my concept, and let me play in this cool way? Nothing against optimizers or anything on that end either. It's just that argument always bugged me, because it's like, well, yes, a spell and spells that expand your action economy are always going to be better than a straight damage boost. You don't need to do math for that. That's just a good thing. But yeah, look at your bonus action. What do you want to do for your bonus action? Do you want to do the tracker thing and then your subclass doesn't need your bonus action? Go for it. Hunter's Mark, Zephyr Strike. You go for it. You really need to use your bonus action for stuff, and you really want to be the guy that uses their pet bear, that uses their dragon to attack, or you summon forces of the planes to empower your attacks. I'll use Favorite Foe instead. It's fine. I want to do that from the get-go. That's the thing I want to do. If you don't care about either of that and you just want to dump Hunter's Mark on that, go use it. Nothing should dissuade you from doing it if this fits within your idealized version of the character either. But just things to consider when you're building the ranger. Like, I've been playing a rogue ranger with only one attack, so I use Zephyr Strike to get advantage when going into backline and sneak attack a squishy target. Yeah, Zephyr Strike is good. Really, really is sweet. It's just the dogma of early 5th edition, where Hunter's Mark is the go-to, is kind of clouds people's judgment, and they feel that if they're not using it, they are a bad ranger. And that's not the case either. Just you have subclass options that fill in that gap, and then you now have Favorite Foe, which fills in that gap too. It's like you're good if you don't use Hunter's Mark, and it's perfectly fine. And this goes for but if you want to use it, you're still fine too. Like but you have other options to play into very similar concept space. I've been incorporating animal companions into attacks and bonus actions, so like 5th level can be a Bow Wow dog or Bow dog, or I'm not Bow Wow. I'm like Bo dog or Bo dog or dog whip. Oh, yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, the pet companion economy stuff is super frustrating. And it's a fantasy people want to do. It's just not always supported like heavily, strongly. So yeah, that is pretty much what I wanted to talk about Rangers. That's pretty much it. Quick rundown again. Rangers are the magical survivalist warrior of 5th edition. Previously, prior to Tasha's, they were never bad. They were good. It's just the systems they interacted with were not developed in a way or underdeveloped to the point where they trivialized that aspect of the game, which was exploration. The Rangers are too good at what they did, which isn't a fault for the Ranger. It was a fault of the exploration pillar and the way it's designed, not supporting that style of play. Tasha's Ranger makes the Ranger feel better for the player experience because now it has them interact with the aspects of the game that are more developed, which are going to be the combat. They're better at combat and maybe interacting more in the social pillars of the game, which is fine. It's good. They understand this is where the game they want to play it, and unfortunately, explorations kind of get pushed to the side where they're not going to develop it as much. Things to reconsider when you're looking at it, and that this goes into whether you should use Hunter's Mark. Be aware of just what you want to do for your action economy, and it's pretty much what you want to do for your bonus action. If you really are trying to be efficient in what you're wanting to do, and leans more into optimization, you want to be as efficient as possible with your bonus action. Figure out what you want to do for your character concept, and see whether you want to use Hunter's Mark or what features you want to use so that you can kind of do the thing you want in your cool combo and your cool character from the get-go. I think that leans in heavily more into like the feel goods and feeling like you're playing your character a lot more than needing to have multiple turns to set up the one cool thing, which you might not be able to do because 30 minutes to an hour later, you're now on round 3 because your other players have been doing stuff and they kill the target you're trying to like go Nova on. So yeah, those are things to consider. Other than that, yeah, next week I'm gonna take off for Dungeoneers Pack Live. I'm going out of town, so I'm wedding planning. So I'm gonna be I'll be out of town, so I'll not be able to be streaming. But I'll be back the following week. I believe that is the 14th of May. Oh, hold on. Looking at the wrong calendar. Yeah, the 14th of May. And then Phil is going to join me. We're going to be talking more about Rangers again. The Ranger discussion's been a long time coming. And Phil and I are going to be talking about Rangers. And I believe we're going to be going into some design stuff too in regards to Rangers. So definitely hope to see you guys back there for this. It's going to be awesome. Phil is great. And other little announcements. I just posted up a character build for the Orzhov lawyer, the Orzhov advocates, for a Ravnica campaign. So you could talk your way, charm, intimidate, swindle your way out of combat and into situations, out of situations, and make that money and just be a total boss. It is great for people that really like to roleplay. It is a build that leans heavily towards that. You're really not you're going to be the guy that helps avoid the fight. So yeah. So definitely check that out. Thanks, Phil. Thank you. So definitely check that out. It was a fun one. I know I saw some comments or the other Ravnica classes. I'm gonna do more. I have a Boros Reckoner one, the Boros Reckoner inspired one. That was like my first character build ever. We're gonna be re-looking at Boros though because that video is rough. Again, it was like my second video I ever did for this channel, and I've grown as a content creator, and my skills have very much developed. So we're gonna go back and look at Boros. We're gonna look at all the guilds. The only thing is, I'm going to say, expects a little bit of slower release. I'm trying to find like a really good work balance between work, content creation, and my personal life, and just being able to do a little bit more things. So it's not that I'm going to be releasing videos weekly, but per month I'm going to try to get out at least 3 videos, because I want to have like at least a week off to kind of breathing room, but also to give me time to work on side projects. I've been wanting to work on the Luchador, but I've been so burnt out and like trying to get videos out that I don't have the mental space and the creativity to dump some of that into the class, because I want to get that done. So yeah, so expect minimum of at least 2 videos a month, 3 videos max I want that week off just to sort of work on stuff and even work on graphics and other stuff for the channel. I always look to improve the channel as much as I can. But also expect some new creative stuff, what I want to do for the channel. So we're going to do some new character build leaning video content, but also you're going to see more of my face. So don't be jarred if you see all of a sudden you see me talking on camera stuff. I'm going to explore more of the on camera stuff. As much as I kind of like throwing graphics on there, that kind of takes time, and I want to be more present and at least known on my channel so I can connect with people better. But also expect to see more character concept focus or character building sort of stuff. I have a video concept I'm going to give you guys a little teaser called Bad Brews, where I want to take mechanics or combinations of player options that are considered bad and try to make something viable with a concept around it so that you guys can use it in your game and actually still play it. So that's one of those ideas I have in my head. So it's still, again, character building concept is just a different way to look at it and be like, hey, these things are considered bad. How do we make them not bad? That's one of the ideas I'm going to be messing with soon. Also, I'm going to be bringing back 2 more. I'm splitting these videos up. I'm going to be bringing back subclass videos, but it's going to be more focused on the flavor stuff. So we're going to have one that is all about just how you can flavor a subclass in different ways. And then there's going to be videos specifically on subclasses and how you fit them into all the 5th edition settings, because there's too many settings now for 5e that can be packed into one video. Like they're Spelljammer, Dragonlance just got added. We got Strixhaven, Ravnica, Theros. There's still Forgotten Realms. There is Ravenloft. That's 7, and yeah, and there's still going to be more. Be way more. So I want to have a dedicated video to that, and also if I have multiple ways to help you fit them into a setting, I want to be able to put multiples of that in there. So they're going to be a little bit more lore heavy, but also because it's stuff like Ravnica and Strixhaven and Theros, I'm very cemented into the Magic the Gathering world, and sometimes a subclass helps facilitate more concept spaces, and me kind of just dumping it at the end of the video and just say, oh, here's one idea for Orzhov that you can play this subclass in. And I was like, well, this subclass could also fit into other parts of that world. I want to be able to have more room for that stuff too. So that's what you're going to see though. Those, I'm looking forward to bringing that back. So we're going to see the next week's video. There will be a video. It's going to be a Patreon video, a Patreon requested video, for a Blackguard. So I'll just leave it at that. That will be dropping Friday. So yeah. So again, new video next week. I'm going to start slowing down my production a little bit just to kind of find a nice balance to be able to work on extra stuff for the channel, extra stuff I want to work on. I want to work on some homebrew. So yeah. So it's going to take time. I'm kind of do more on camera stuff that needs me to take time to develop some skills, and also just find ways to just be healthier mentally in regards to how I approach my channel, because I love interacting with you guys. I really do. But the grind can get to content creators at times. So having that time to kind of step away is really, really key. Exactly. Yeah. Don't overwork yourself. I think I'm naturally driven by like success, and like I think anybody in this that's trying to do this, I want to do good. And I think my approach, how I'm doing it now, isn't not making me like successful. It's just not a healthy for me to approach it. I think taking a step back and then readjusting how I want to approach this stuff and do it in a healthy way that I continue to have fun doing it is better. I'm very much want to prevent certain issues before they arise. So yeah. So we're gonna be doing a lot more on camera work. We're still gonna have fun graphics, and I'm gonna be pulling pictures from everywhere still. It's just you're gonna see more of me outside of streams on the videos. So yeah. So I'm getting new equipment and stuff for that too. So expect more of that. So yeah, next week no stream. The following stream we'll be back with Phil. We'll be talking more Rangers. So yeah, and then again, go check out the Orzhov Lawyer Bard build. It was really fun. I'm gonna be doing more Ravnica builds in the future. So yeah, so until next time, guys, I will take care, and you guys have a good one, and see ya.